Check, you know what's weird about Wemby? He's like the only person in San Antonio can't gain weight.
I will give you credit for that one, Chuckster.
Who you talking about, Chuck? Hey, man, I don't understand why this the only skinny person in San Antonio.
So that was Charles Barkley doing what Charles Barkley does, making fun of people. And certainly Victor Wembanyama may indeed be the thinnest person in the San Antonio metropolitan area. That being said, I have to say, after watching Victor Wembanyama play on Christmas Day against the New York Knicks, I heard yesterday one of the all-time most ridiculous takes about a basketball player. Now, I'm not going to say who actually said this, but this particular person went on to say that while Victor Wembanyama scored 42 points, had 18 rebounds, had 4 blocks in the game against the New York Knicks, and despite the fact that they actually lost to the Knicks on Christmas Day, it was his introduction to the NBA community, which is just an absolutely ridiculous take. We are 1 year and a quarter or so into Victor Wembanyama's career. And if you are even just a casual fan of the NBA, you've heard of Victor Wembanyama, haven't you? You have seen, if you will, the alien actually sit, 10 feet behind the three-point arc and drain a three. Look, Victor Wembanyama in his last 10 games has been absolutely spectacular. Gonna read off some stats. Last 10 games for Victor Wembanyama, 28.5 points, 4.9 blocks per game, and 10.3 rebounds. I am just saying Victor Wembanyama, on top of those stats that I just read, is also generating in his last 10 games 4.5 assists. Why so much disrespect for Victor Wembanyama at this stage of his career? You know, I hear the National Basketball Association talk about looking for a young player to get behind. Who's going to be the new face of the NBA? It is absolutely staring us all in the face. As much of an Anthony Edwards fan as I am, I think at the end of the day, if we were to take a look at all the young players, Anthony Edwards, SGA, Victor Wembanyama, Ja Morant when he's not waving his gun around in a club or in a car, you'd have to say Victor Wembanyama probably could absolutely become the face of the National Basketball Association. Welcome to the NBA Rundown. On today's show, we are going to talk about why is Victor Wembanyama the most underrated player in the NBA at this point. Now, I want to point out that I personally don't believe that he is underrated. I personally have Victor Wembanyama rated extremely high in the NBA. Basically, I've got Victor at this point already in my top 10 NBA players. He's also in my top 5 players that I'm happy to watch night in and night out, despite the fact that he's not necessarily playing on a great team at this point. I think if you take a look at the overall team stats of this San Antonio Spurs team, you'll understand what I'm saying. Plus, they are 15-15, which of course is a significant improvement over what they did last year. I have to say, when you look at this roster and you say, who's the second best player on this roster? Well, it's supposed to be Devin Vassell. And Devin Vassell, who, of course, was injured earlier in the season and has played in 15 of their 25 games or 30 games to this point, is one of those players that has been, quite frankly, a little bit disappointing. He is actually only averaging 15.7 points a game. And for Wemby to truly be successful in the NBA, he's certainly going to have somebody else on the roster who can actually light it up. I mean, somebody that's actually going to consistently average somewhere between 20 and 25 points a game. Now look, I think De'Aaron Fox would be a perfect fit for Victor Wembanyama. Now, throughout this video, I've been running some video of Victor and some of the just unbelievable things that he can do. Remember, he's 6'3" or 7'3", 7'4"-ish. He's tall, he's lengthy, he actually shoots the ball pretty good. His three-point percentage is a little bit better than average at this point, and I think with time he'll get even better at shooting threes. When I look at Victor and then I take a look at the rest of this roster and I say Jeremy Sochan, who I absolutely like, and of course you can always see him on the court. He's currently got the green highlighter stuff in his hair, but he's another guy that's not going to give you 20 points a night. He is a very nice role player. Speaking of role players, Julian Champagne, a very nice role player. And as much as I love the rookie Stephon Castle, he is also a very nice role player. So if the San Antonio Spurs are actually serious about actually winning this year or next year, they will make a move at some point to bring in a second scorer. We know that CP3 is basically skied all the way down the backside of Career Mountain. And while he can give you some good minutes, he's not necessarily going to put together good games back to back to back. You're not going to get, 20 to 25 points a night from CP3 at this point. So he's a nice Band-Aid, if you will, until they figure this thing out. But just looking at Victor and how well he is currently playing at this point, he is now averaging over 25 points a game, over 10 rebounds a game, nearly 4 assists a game. He's also getting 1.1 steals per game, which is amazing when you think about it, and is now averaging over 4 blocks a game. Now, as I said, in his last 10 games, he's actually averaging close to 5 blocks a game. He has been nothing short of a spectacular to this point. So why is he so underrated? Why aren't more people actually really talking about Victor Wembanyama as the next face of the NBA, as, if you will, one of the best players in the NBA today? Now, there's the whole France thing, the fact that he's not an American-born basketball player. Will the NBA actually go down the path of having a face of their league not be a player born in America? Which, as much as I love the country that I live in, it's an absolutely ridiculous statement. It's all about making money ultimately. And when you think about Victor Wembanyama, and if you will, the alien, the freak of nature that is Victor, of course the NBA should make him one of the faces of the NBA right now. Now, we know on Christmas Day that, of course, the television ratings came out, and the ratings for the Knicks San Antonio Spurs game certainly wasn't even close to what LeBron James and Steph Curry pulled in, which, by the way, just another classic battle between those two in that game. Steph Curry in the last couple minutes of that game was just absolutely spectacular. And LeBron James certainly played well for somebody that's turning 40 on Monday. So I look at this and I think SGA, I think Victor, and I think Anthony Edwards are the face of the NBA. which is why I don't understand why SGA wasn't also featured on Christmas Day. You know, we talk about the NBA ratings struggling and why aren't more people paying attention to the NBA? And there's certainly a lot of factors that probably go into it. But at the end of the day, I think the primary reason that people aren't tuning into the NBA in the way they used to, outside of there simply just not being enough drama between players, it's just simply to say that this has always been a league about the players, not necessarily, if you will, the teams. It's always, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird saved the NBA. It was never the Chicago Bulls. It was always Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. At the end of the day, are you tuning in to watch the San Antonio Spurs? Are you tuning in to watch the Minnesota Timberwolves? What about the Oklahoma City Thunder? Look, those three teams have three young superstars on them that all deserve to be promoted heavily by the National Basketball Association because they are, if you will, the future of the league. I went back and I looked at Tim Duncan's stats from the beginning of his career, and I can tell you right now, in his first year in the association, Tim Duncan, 21.7 points a game. Year 2, 23.2 points a game. And he certainly wasn't blocking the shots the way Victor Wembanyama does. From a rebound perspective, very similar numbers, if you will. So at the end of the day, those two players are very similar from a statistical standpoint, minus what Victor is actually doing on the defensive side of the court. Clearly, if I had to go out and vote this week about who was actually going to be this year's Defensive Player of the Year, it would be an easy checkbox. Sorry, Rudy Gobert, but it would absolutely be Victor Wembanyama. So what do we know? Well, we know that Victor Wembanyama will most likely win this year's Defensive Player of the Year. We know that Victor Wembanyama on Christmas Day scored 42 points. He absolutely showed up to dominate. We know that Victor Wembanyama also has a fantastic personality and is certainly a very smart person. Here, check out this video.
What's dark matter?
Yeah.
So it's, I like these kind of questions. Those are different. Dark matter is like a mass we can't see, but we know it's there because it's got influence on gravitational pulls and the speed of gravitational orbits in every galaxies, and its presence inside galaxies is 5 times higher than regular but seeable matter. So it's a huge mystery, and we can't see it, we can't observe it, but we can observe its influence. So this is dark matter.
Look, anybody that can actually sit there and rattle off what dark matter is, and actually give a reasonable explanation for it on the fly in the middle of a press conference absolutely deserves to, if you will, be promoted heavily by the NBA. Look, if the NBA is really serious about solving its overall ratings issues, it will make sure that most of the prime time games in the upcoming in the next 4 months feature not just the old guard, but feature a lot of the young talent. All right, love to know what your thoughts are on why Victor Wembanyama right now is so underrated compared to all of the other players. I mean, he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's going to put up numbers at the end of the day that we haven't really seen before by a player like Victor Wembanyama at the age of 20. I am just saying, remember, he's only 20. All right, for the NBA rundown, I'm Dave DeBaugh wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit, I got no love